she never wanted trouble. She never wanted attention. To most, she was just the quiet girl in the back of the classroom, the one who avoided eye contact, spoke barely above a whisper, and kept her world hidden behind books and sketch pads. But what nobody knew, what nobody could have imagined, was that silence is not weakness, and quiet does not mean powerless. So when 3 boys cornered her one afternoon, mocking her voice, pulling at her bag, and shoving her as though she was their game, they had no idea what they were about to awaken. Because 10 seconds later, the same girl they laughed at stood taller than any of them, moving with precision and strength like someone trained to survive. And in that moment, the quiet girl taught them, and everyone watching, that you never measure a person's strength by how little they speak, but by how deeply they rise when pushed too far. Her name was Alara. She had transferred to Westbridge High just 3 months ago, and though new faces usually faded into the noise of a large school, hers seemed to draw attention, not the kind she wanted. She was thin, pale, and almost too delicate looking, with dark hair that fell over her eyes and a voice so soft that teachers had to lean in when she answered questions. She walked through hallways with her head lowered, clutching her books like armor, as though she was trying to shrink into invisibility. And in a world where confidence was currency, invisibility made her an easy target. Alara had a secret life no one knew about. Every morning before dawn she trained with her uncle, a retired soldier who had raised her after her parents died in a car accident. He had taught her discipline, endurance, and self-defense, not because he wanted her to fight, but because he wanted her to never feel powerless in a world that often took advantage of the weak. But Alara never flaunted it. She carried her training like a shadow, hidden from the world, tucked beneath her silence. At school, however, shadows didn't protect her. The boys who noticed her were the loud ones, the ones who thrived on making others feel small. Damon, Chris, and Kyle, 3 seniors who ruled the hallways like they owned them, saw her as nothing more than entertainment. They mocked her accent when she spoke. They called her names when she walked past. And sometimes they made sure her books fell from her arms just so they could watch her scramble to pick them up. Each day chipped away at her patience, but she never retaliated. She told herself, stay invisible, don't draw attention. But her silence only encouraged them. One Friday afternoon, after the final bell rang, Alara walked home along the side street near the athletic field. The campus was almost empty, sunlight melting into golden haze. When she heard footsteps behind her, she quickened her pace, clutching her bag, but the laughter came closer. Damon, Chris, and Kyle. They surrounded her, cutting off her path. Well, Damon sneered, leaning close. If it isn't little mouse girl. Didn't think you could sneak home without saying goodbye to us. Chris tugged at her bag, yanking it so hard the strap bit into her shoulder. Kyle smirked, circling her slowly, like a predator enjoying the fear of its prey. What's in here? Probably books nobody reads. You think being quiet makes you better than us? Alara's chest tightened, her heart hammering. She told herself to stay calm, to endure. But when Damon shoved her so hard she stumbled, nearly hitting the ground, something inside her snapped. For weeks she had swallowed the humiliation, the whispers, the mockery. For years she had carried grief and silence like a weight on her shoulders. And now, standing in the fading light, surrounded by 3 boys who thought she was powerless, she finally decided she wouldn't hide anymore. Alara straightened, her hand steady as she set her bag on the ground. Her hair fell from her face, and for the first time, her eyes locked onto theirs, sharp, unflinching, unafraid. The boys laughed, mistaking her calm for weakness. But then it happened. Damon reached for her again, and in less than a heartbeat, she stepped aside, caught his wrist, and twisted it with precision that made him cry out in shock. Chris lunged forward, but she pivoted, using his momentum to flip him onto the grass. Kyle hesitated, startled by the suddenness of it all, but when he charged, she dropped low, swept his legs out from under him, and stood over him with such control that the fight ended before it even began. 10 seconds, that was all it took. 10 seconds, and the quiet girl who never raised her voice had brought 3 arrogant boys to the ground like they were nothing more than practice dummies. The silence that followed was louder than their laughter had ever been. Damon clutched his wrist, staring at her as though she was someone else entirely. Chris groaned, trying to push himself up, and Kyle's face was flushed with humiliation. None of them spoke. None of them dared. Alara didn't gloat. She didn't insult them back. She simply picked up her bag, slung it over her shoulder, and walked away, her step steady, her head high. For the first time since she had arrived at Westbridge High, she wasn't invisible, she was undeniable. Word spread quickly. By Monday, whispers filled the hallways. "Did you hear about the new girl? She took them down like a soldier. She didn't even break a sweat." Students who had once ignored her now looked at her with a mix of awe and respect. Teachers who thought she was timid noticed her presence differently. And as for Damon, Chris, and Kyle, they never cornered her again. In fact, they couldn't even look her in the eye. But the real victory wasn't the fight. It wasn't about the 10 seconds that shifted the balance of power. It was about what Elara carried within her all along. The discipline, the strength, the resilience shaped by pain and silence. She had proven something not just to them, but to herself, that being quiet didn't mean being weak, that endurance could be louder than words, and that sometimes the greatest strength is the one you keep hidden until the world forces you to reveal it. In the end, her story wasn't about revenge. It was about rising, and though she never sought attention, she became a silent inspiration for others, the reminder that behind every quiet face might be a warrior waiting for the right moment to stand. And so, the quiet girl who once walked with her head lowered now walked with a new kind of silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of strength,